dumb questions. And I handed them back to Keith. And the first thing I did was call my mom, because she's the only one in my life that would ever believe that that story happened.
Well, God bless you.
Doing a live interview really quick.
You just put Little Richard as a human being based on your words. Thank you so much, Kim. You go to work. Thank you for coming on. And we won't forget you. There's going to be a lot more years of this. When you go to Hollywood, be sure and stay only at Ondas, West Hollywood. Do not go to California and stay anywhere else. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right. Bye, Kim.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. Who's next? Come on. I see your head popped up. I hope it's Nate coming back.
How you doing, Keith?
Nate Hardesty, one of the people over there taking care of the Ondas. Say hello, Nate, and tell them a little bit about the hotel and how many years did Richard stay there?
Yeah, thank you, Keith. It was so nice to get that call from you back in, I think, June when you started to put this together. And this hotel's been around about 62 years.
Yes.
And it's got a rich history of rock and roll. Little Richard moved in, I want to say in 1972, and spent almost 30 years as a resident of the hotel. I think you even told me at one point that both of you were baptized in the pool up on the roof. Is that
right
true?
up? I got a picture of the roof pool right now on my computer. I'm going to show it to everybody. Baptized Little Richard for the second time on the roof of this hotel, which is now Ondas. Of course, it's been Continental Hyatt House, regular Hyatt House,
Yes, sir.
Hollywood Hyatt House, and now Ondas.
we actually named our restaurant the Riot House at those days. And this restaurant actually used to have his diamond crusted piano that he would come down midday and oftentimes in the evening and play for the guests for hours at a time. So it was a pretty special place. Yeah, we're honored.
Awesome.
In the history of rock and roll, Ondas will stand for all time.
Wow.
You may change the name. I don't know about that. But
I hope not.
I want to thank you for allowing us to do this. And this is the first year. We're going to be continuing this on for 4 or 5 years because we believe that his legacy will last a lot longer, and we want to maintain being a part of that legacy.
We wanted to as well. We appreciate that, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. And you tell Shelby we said thank you. And we owe her a yellow rose from Texas.
Sounds great. Stay safe, everybody.
I happen to be born in Texas, so I give out yellow roses.
Perfect.
All right, guys. Nate, thank you. And let's send you some business, and let's all say a word of prayer. Keep your mask on. Don't worry about where you live. Be sure and stay out of the rest of the way of Corona. Okay. Thank you, Nate. Bye-bye. Oh, Libby Anthony, live here from Atlanta, Georgia, the home of and one of the closest areas that we all know that Little Richard started. He came from Macon, but he didn't start till he got to Atlanta with a guy named Billy Wright. I should have a picture of Billy Wright somewhere. I should put it up because if you see Billy Wright, you'll know who Little Richard came from.
If we go all the way back, I consider myself an entertainment historian.
Yes, you are.
All right.
But when we go all the way back, we realize 1947, Little Richard's first gig was at first paid gig.
Yes.
Was at the Macon City Auditorium with Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who heard
Rosetta Tharpe.
Heard him singing before her show, brought him on stage, and paid him afterwards. And that's when he decided, this is going to be all right. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get paid for singing. I'm going to get paid for singing.
All right. I see John Payne's head pop up there. And I think I saw Carlos on there. But I want Libby to read what she wrote in her upcoming entertainment book. Come on.
Okay. So what I'd like to do, because it is, Richard lived a long and prosperous, good life. It's a little long, so I'm going to read it hopefully in 2 segments. But it's, I just told you the part about Richard's paid first.
Just that
first paid gig was in 1947. And of course, I told you that by the time he was 17, before he even made it to the 10th grade, he joined the traveling minstrel show, where
That's
he
right.
first sang Caledonia by Louis Jordan. And he performed in drag and was often billed as Princess Lavon.
In
And was featured with a variety of vaudeville acts. It was 1950 before he performed with a band for the first time. The band was the Buster Brown's Orchestra. The band leader Brown was the first to start calling him Little Richard. He soon moved to Atlanta, where he played the local clubs, including Zanzibar, where he served not only as an entertainer, but in between in between shows, he was the janitor. He, of course, played the famed Royal Peacock, and that's where he ran into Chuck Willis and Billy Wright.
Okay.
Richard was still developing a style and persona in 51, and influenced by Ike Turner, he started playing the piano. Under the influence of Billy Wright, he started with the pompadour hairstyle, mimicking how Wright wore his hair. He started wearing the pencil-thin mustache and using the pancake makeup. Billy Wright even taught him how to be an entertainer. It was also Billy Wright who introduced him to Zena Sears, who recorded Richard at the radio station with Billy's band. Sears used that recording to get Richard's first record deal with RCA Victor. And obviously it wasn't successful, and after a long while with RCA and no success, he moved to Houston. He was gaining in popularity, but still no hit. That's when he joined Don Roby's label, Peacock Records. That didn't work out either. It resulted in Richard recording 8 unreleased tunes, Roby knocking Richard out in a fight about finances, and Richard moved back to Macon in 54. It was then on tour with Johnny Taylor that Richard befriended Lloyd Price. Their relationship resulted in Richard singing with Specialty Records and being signing with Specialty and being partnered with Robert Bumps Blackwell.
All right, you got the first half of it done.
Okay.
Just sit right there. Don't you move.
Right.
You want to finish?
I want to
stop right there. Let's stop right there. We starting with Bumps Blackwell when you come back, okay?
Okay. All right. Good. I like that.
Hitman Records. I see somebody from Hitman standing tall. You know it all.
Oh yeah.
What's going on?
Michael, man. See Michael Bray, Hitman Records, California. They have distributed the only album that I was able to do. As a young man, Little Richard let me record the band. In those days, everybody's band was breaking away. Okay, it was always, the Gap Band was really the backup for Leon Russell. New Birth was New Birth and the Nightlighters. All these different bands began to come out, and Richard allowed me to record the band. 35 years later, C. Michael Bray released that album. It's out right now. I don't know if you got a copy of the CD in your hand that you can hold up. If you don't worry. We'll pop it somewhere. But eventually it'll show up. And it's the Little Richard Band. And guess what? It's a lot of diverse music. It was the band. But he put it out. Hitman Records is one of those. Oh, I see Tim Stead pop up with the record in the background. There we go. We got somebody knowing what to do. Michael. There you go. Michael, they got everything at the hotel. He said he's going to put it up and leave it up for about a week. You know, once we get it all up, send it out there. But we want to tell you how much we appreciate. Tell me a little story about you knowing Little Richard. Then I'll go to Tim. Good.
Well, it was actually my twin sister actually met him before me, actually. He had called me. I want to say it was like when I was in college years ago in the early 80s. And I think that was the time that Little Richard became a preacher. So I don't know if he was laying hands or something like that, but she was like, oh my God, Little Richard's laying hands on my I was in this line and all that. And it was really cool. So, But the thing about Little Richard, I'm just like really fortunate that speaking of Little Richard with Keith, a couple years ago, wish him happy birthday and all that. But really, I was really just honored to tell Richard that hey, we're just so honored to distribute your album. And the thing was, Little Richard was like, I'm not worried about that. It's like I'm blown away. This guy's like the architect of rock and roll, and he's not even, he's like, hey, it's no big deal. But it's just an honor. You know what I mean? Just the fact that we have Little Richard on our catalog. So, and I, as Keith knows, I go all the way back in the days with Dick Griffey. That's how I started. So after Motown,
our boy Dick.
Right. So, I mean, he's the one that gave me my shot years ago. So, after Berry Gordy, Dick Griffey was kind of like the last black major label. So he's the one that gave me a shot. So that's the reason why we had a very large distribution. So we're honored to run everything through. So it's available, like you guys know, through FYE, Walmart, Target, Barnes & Noble. We even have vinyl out. We have CDs, and of course we have the digital through Spotify and all the digital stores. So we're honored.
Okay, man. You tell Vita that you did your part, but she put you out.
It's my brother.
All right. I said you be sure and tell Vita that you did your part.
I did my part.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just so honored to be part of a legacy. I mean, there's no words to there's no words, right?
Man, there are no words.
There's like no words because it's like, well, everybody, the whole thing, with Keith telling me about Richard voice training the Beatles. Youngsters don't even know that. Like,
right. That's why we're doing this. I'm going to put a human face on Little Richard's life beside his stage persona. He's a human being, and he was a nice man, and he did a lot to help create new music. So this whole thing is to challenge all the young people out here, create something new. Don't be copying all the old stuff that you keep hearing every day. Come up with your own picture. I see Tim's head pop. Hold on, Mike. I see Tim's head pop up. I need Tim Goodrich on here. He's the one that discovered all this. He's got the picture of the album behind him. He's with Soundcheck Studios, who brought everything so that Hitman would have a distribution agreement. Tim, say hello to everybody.
How you guys doing? Can you hear me?
Yes. John Payne, you next, and then Marsh. Hey, buddy, I see your head pop up. Let Tim talk, and I'm going to come right back to you.
All right.
Okay.
Don't go nowhere. Oh, I see Marshall. Marshall, is that you here? I see Marshall there with the shy lights calling in to say hello to everybody. Marshall, you hold on a second. I'm going to let John Payne talk about Tennessee, and then we're going to go to Marshall with the shy lights. John Payne.
Oh, okay. You ready for me to talk?
I'm ready for you to talk.
Look here, man. Little Richard made such an impact on the whole world, and as the young lady said earlier, I mean, nobody can replace him. But like you saying, Keith, I mean, I really appreciate, that young artists need to come forth with their talents and abilities that they have and realize they can make an impact on the world as well. But Keith, man, I just want to stop and thank you for putting and bringing all this together, man. Yeah. For those that don't know me, my especially over the last 30, 40 years or better, I've been dealing primarily in the gospel arena, and Little Richard made a tremendous impact, on the state of Tennessee. So many artists, I mean, even your Elvis Presley, and many of them found out that they can do the moves and all the other stuff. They studied Little Richard, left and right. And of course, we got Al Green here. Al Green have done something similar to what Richard did later on in life. He converted back to where he started, back in the gospel. A lot of them checked out the churches and how the folks would shout and move, and they got a lot of them movements. And now the church is doing a lot of performance now, because they seen that it's nothing wrong with going out and entertaining people, not only with your voice, but with what you're doing on the stage, and Little Richard, man, he set a standard that, I don't think nobody in this generation will be able to touch or reach, and I know also, I remember reading something about when he came to Memphis back in, I think it was 2012, somewhere around there, and he did Beale Street Blues Festival thing that we have here. Because you know, Beale Street is big on the blues and music and stuff here,
well, Richard does have 2 blues albums. If you go back and research it, so Richard did blues.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and man, the rest of that, man, and I remember him saying once in an article that he seen Otis Redding, and Otis Redding, you know, the way he used to perform, you know, and Otis Redding came had a whole lot of roots with the Stax records here in Memphis, and the deal was that Richard looked at him and said, you know, he coming on with some of the stuff that I got, and he felt good about, you know, people looking at him and seeing how he was doing it and duplicating that. He was an open and sharing person. He felt very, you know, open to sharing his talents and abilities. And of course, Jerry Lee Lewis, you know, up out of Nashville, you know.
That's right.
And had all his performances and stuff. You look at him and say, oh, that's a Little Rich.
That's all it was. But Jerry, I did many shows with Jerry Lee Lewis, and when Jerry would, I'm going to say this and y'all understand it, when Jerry would get drunk, he would not come out of his dressing room. And every show, they used to send Richard to the dressing room to get Jerry to come to stage. And when he walked on stage, Jerry Lewis would be sober, and he would kill an audience. But he did all the Richard stuff. And he told people, if I wouldn't have made it if it hadn't been for Richard.
Yep. And, man, you know, so Richard have just impacted so much, man. And I appreciate you allowing me to come on this time, man. And to receive all this
so much.
I'm here, though. No problem. Okay. All right.
But John, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Stay and listen. And I think I saw Tim come back. Let me get Tim on, and then Tim, go ahead and call Marshall with the Shy Lights and let him pop up right now.
All right.
Tim.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There he is. I don't see your face, but I hear your voice, so I know you're there. And where's Marshall?
I'm right here.
There it is. Marshall with the Sidelights. Please say hello. You got Tim Goodrich. You got John Payne. And of course, you got the Ondas in Hollywood who helping sponsor this. Talk to him. Tell me about Chicago and how many times Richard made an influence on the Chicago market.
Richard made a big influence for me, you know, and when I used to go out there, first of all, I used to go out there, me and Joe Jackson used to come out to the hotel and go up to the suite. And, but Richard said, let's go get something to eat.
I know you're listening, Bernard. We ain't forgot you. Stay close.
Okay, all right.
So we go down and he say, order some food. I said, Richard said, order some food right now. So me and Joe Jackson, we sit up there in the suite up there at the Hyatt. It used to be the Hyatt Regency, Hyatt house there.
Yep, that's right.
And we go up there in the suite, just eat, and talk about my career, talk about going, how I was starting. When I was doing, he gave me a lot of tips on the road to keep me together with my group. Now I've been with my group 62 years now.
Okay. Wow.
And he was one of the big influences of telling me about the whole thing in the road, what they expect out there, and what to do. And we're very happy about it. Now we get our star in Hollywood in May 27th. We'll be getting our star in Hollywood. So we're pretty happy about that. Wish he was here to see that, you know. But, you know, one of the greatest entertainers that ever hit the stage. He always used to tell me, Marshall, they don't never want to give me nothing. I said,
Richard tell him to shut up.
Yeah, he showed that. I said, Richard, you got it all anyway. He ain't got to know about that, you know.
Well, you know, his belief in God always carried Richard.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people, they got the rock and roll came from him. Even when he did the Alan Freed shows back in the day.
That's right. That's
right. All of that came from his style. He had his own style, putting his leg up, piano playing, and everybody wanted to do that. Even Chuck Berry was so close to him, you know, doing his thing. So Chuck Berry.
Well, he finally did get a Lifetime Achievement from the Grammys, but he always said that I had to make them do it. They wouldn't do it.
Well, his performance made him do it too, because he had the act, he had the performance, and he paved the way for all the groups, and especially for us, for Shy Lights and all of us came up. You know, watching the movies he was in, you know, all the Alan Freed movies. So I mean, everything was just on top. He was on top of everything. He was eventually going to get it. They just didn't get around to him, you know, at that time.
Well, all the way from Georgia, I got a good friend of ours on the listening to you, Bernard Holyfield, the Holyfield family. And he's another one of those Georgia icons who came along and supported Richard and everybody else who came out of Georgia. So many of the artists. Bernard, say hello to everybody.
Yeah, I just want to say hello to everyone, and Keith and the whole cast here. I want to commend you guys on this great work. I'm sure this is going to be an annual event, and we can't say enough good things about Mr. Penniman. We all know he was the original innovator, the original originator, and the architect of rock and roll. But I found out a little bit later doing research that he was also part of the architect of integration before the civil rights movement really got up and going. Because he was integrating audiences, well before, the larger movement started. So again, I just want to, commend you guys and everyone, and I'm just enjoying all of the information and the history that's being presented here regarding Little Richard. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you, Bernard, and you be sure and tell Jazzy that I said hello, and we got to get her all the publishing we can get.
Okay, sounds good, buddy.
Keep the school going. We're going to make the school. We're going to put a part of the funds we're going to raise through this kind of activity is to help her with that music school that she's starting down there.
Sounds good, buddy.
You got it? And we're going to send everybody we know to send it down there. Once she gets the school set up, then we're going to push it just like we did Georgia. Because I went to the same school she went to, University of Georgia, but I was a lecturer. I lectured for the program, the Georgia School Music Program. So I appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much, Bernard. I want to go back to Libby so she can tell a little bit more about Richard's history. And stay there with me, Bernard. I want to ask you a couple other things.
Okay,
Libby?
Okay, I'm not.
Waldo, there she is.
I'm here, okay.
Okay. Say something to our boy.
Hey, Marshall!
Yeah, there you go.
Right there. Hey, Marshall. Anyway, it was in New Orleans with Bumps Blackwell. After a recording session, their efforts failed. They went to hang out at a local club, and while Richard was ad-libbing a rather risque blues tune, Blackwell heard a hit, and Tutti Frutti was born.
Yep.
They had to make a few alterations in the lyrics, but Little Richard was on his way to legendary status. After 3 takes, Tutti Frutti was successfully recorded and subsequently released November 1955. Little Richard started breaking the racial barriers of segregation. Everybody wanted to see the man in the makeup who rocked the piano, who often stood on it to sing, who was here, there, on stage, off stage, and the beat was rocking. Little Richard launched a whole new breed of music. Was it rock and roll? Was it rock, blues, soul, funk? No, it was just Little Richard, innovator, genre creator, architect of rock and roll.
That's right.
Richard followed Tutti Frutti. Well, let's go this. Tutti Frutti was the first crossover record by a soul race artist. It crossed over in the States as well as in the United Kingdom. The song is included in the National Recording Registry of the Library of Congress, where it is lauded as unique vocalizing over the irresistible beat announced a new era in music. It is also listed in Mojo's as #1 record on the list of top 100 records that changed the world.
Wow. Correct.
Upon his, okay, so let me go to this part right here. He followed Tutti Frutti with Long Tall Sally in '56. For the next 3 years, he had over 15 hit records, including Lucille, Slipping and Sliding, Jenny, Jenny, and on. Good golly, Miss Marty, Lordy, Miss Claudia, hit after hit. Upon his return to Macon, he put together a powerful rhythm and blues band, the Upsetters. You mentioned Otis Redding, but let's check this out. Who became one of the South's most famous bands. Richard found his success with the gay line and the makeup. He said white men were less intimidated about him wanting a white woman. it was working so successfully that when he played White Rooms, he had the whole band wear pancake makeup.
Yep.
He was quite generous in giving upcoming musicians opportunity to play with him. One such artist was Otis Redding.
All right.
Jamaica native.
Yep.
Who started his career in the late 1950s as a member of the Upsetters band.
All right.
Otis looked at Richard to the point he imitated Richard's raw energy style, which is quite noticeably in Otis's first regional hit, Shout Mama Llama. Otis also gave credit to Richard for being the personification of soul and one who always looked out for the brothers in the music industry. Another legend that played with the Upsetters was Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix.
Who was introduced to Richard by Gorgeous George, longtime MC at the Royal Peacock.
Right.
Jimmy was in between, you know the story there, where Jimmy joined Richard on stage. With his flamboyant stage show and electrifying music, Little Richard influenced many iconic and legendary entertainers. James Brown idolized him and credits him with the first hit for the famous Flames, Please, 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 which Richard had written on a napkin. Elvis Presley covered 4 of his songs, crediting Little Richard with being an inspiration to him and the greatest. Producer Ike Turner admitted to developing Tina Turner's vocal style based on Little Richard's delivery. Even while he was in high school, Bob Dylan's ambition was to join Little Richard.
Wow.
Michael Jackson credited Little Richard with a huge influence. Prince's flamboyant dress, music, and style was surely patterned after Richard. Sam Cooke often credited Richard with the development of soul with his many contributions to the music. Sam covered 1956, Richard's 1956 hit, Send Me Someone Loving. It garnered him a top 40 hit. Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, the Everly Brothers, and a host of others honored Little Richard by covering his songs over the years. Little Richard received a plethora of awards over his entertainment career. However, he never received a Grammy. He was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award in '93.
That's because he
3
made
of
them.
his songs, right, Tutti Frutti, Lucille, and Long Tall Sally, and his album, Here's Little Richard, were inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. He was in the inaugural induction when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame opened in 1986. He was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, in addition to receiving Lifetime Achievement Awards from the Rhythm and Blues Foundation and NARAS. The National Museum of African American History bestowed on him Rhapsody in Rhythm Award in 2015 for his contributions in the formation of popular music genre, for helping to end the racial divide in concerts, and for ending the racial divide in music charts, and for significantly changing American culture.
Okay, Libby, stop right there. 2020. I got you. We're gonna go to 2020 in a minute.
The music
Jim,
that's the end.
That's not the end.
No. That's the end of my chapter.
Well, thank you for that history. And I'm saying his story. I know it's history, but thank you for his
story. You know, it's a lot left out of that.
All right.
That's show business. Marsha, remember when Richard came out of show business? He came out, he went to Oakwood College. My mother was a teacher there. They put Little Richard with my mother so that she would help tutor Richard. She introduced him to a lady named Ernestine, who Richard ended up marrying. It was a Seventh-day Adventist school in Huntsville, Alabama, and Richard is actually buried there in Huntsville right now. But that's how I met Little Richard as a kid. Years later, I went to California, met him again, and that's when I went to work for Richard. I had many years on the road with Richard, and after I left the road, we stayed friends and did a lot of things together. And I will always remember that Richard did believe in two things: his God, his love for his God, but he also believed that all of the new kids coming up should have a shot at making stardom like he did.
Absolutely.
He believed that. Okay? Marshall, you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. That's the way he was.
That's the way he was. And we want to continue that part of his legacy now. We want to keep these new kids motivated to do their own thing. Come up with something fresh and new, you know, and it'll be a part of Little Richard Honors. He always did believe in that, and Marshall know what I'm talking about. Marshall, how you doing? Talk to me about what you're going to be doing in May.
Well, May, we getting our Hollywood Walk of Fame star. We finally came. I remember sitting up there with Little Richard at the Hyatt in the suite up there, talking about what we were doing. Me and Joe Jackson, Michael's dad, we were sitting up there together, and we was talking about my whole career, really. He said, Marshall, you've been going on a long time now. You know how Richard was. You know,
I know how Richard was.
Going on a long time, man. When you gonna come back out here? And they trying to give me something. I say, hey, you already got something, Richard.
Paul, are you there? Okay, go ahead, Marshall.
I say, Richard, you've been getting something since I've been in high school. I'm trying to catch up with you. He said, but they don't want to give me my props. I said, you got your own props, Richard. Don't worry about that. You deserved everything you get. You didn't put more hits out than anybody on the circuit. I was in high school when you was singing hits. Actually, I was in grammar school when you was singing. So
he was a hit maker from the beginning.
Yeah. I told him, I said, your time is coming for it, and it did. You know, he jumped out there and did his thing. You know, one of the greatest entertainers that ever hit the stage. One of the greatest that ever hit the stage.
All right.
Well, I tell you what, you've
been
been in the
that
hotel.
everybody remember too about Little Richard, and I think it's something that young people don't ever often. You know, you want to jump right to star status. You need to realize that in one of his first gigs in Atlanta at Zanzibar, in between gigs, he was the janitor. That is very important to pass on, that sometimes you can't go straight to stardom.
That's
you have to sweep the floor sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
right. And everybody should remember that about Richard, that he swept the floor, went on stage, and became one of the most prolific artists of all time.
Well, Tim Goodrich down there right now, and I'm going to talk back to Bernard in a minute, but Tim, he's a new record company. He's been around for years, but he's helping a lot of up-and-coming artists. Tell them a little bit about what you're doing at the sound check.
Hey, Keith. Hey, everybody. Well, I started sound check basically on a fluke. My wife invited me to see her friend's husband perform, and I was like, local band, you know, they're not going to be any good. And went there and was blown away with the energy and just the music, the orchestration behind it, and just the raw power. Now, that was I guess you would call it a heavy metal band, but it was still really good the way the songs were written and the way the guitarist made the guitar sing. So I had taken some video and brought it home to the computer, edited it, showed it to the leader of the band, and he's like, this is awesome. We need someone like you to help out. So I became the manager of the band. And the name Soundcheck Studios came from the leader of the band was from the Czech Republic. We were trying to come up with a name for the record label to put the first album out. And he was sitting there playing on his drums, and I asked him what time Soundcheck was for the CD release party, if he remembered. And behind his drum kit was a Czech flag. And I was like, I got it. He's like, what do you have? I was like, I have the name for the company, Soundcheck. And I pointed towards the Czech flag. He laughed. He's like, yeah, okay, that'll work. It's unique. So that's how the name came about. And from there, I've worked with several bands in the Tampa Bay area, just trying to weed out the ones that are worth working with, like the incredible Virginia Rose Band.
Unbelievable artist.
Yes. She's probably one of the best songwriters out today. Problem is, she doesn't have money to back the endeavor. Anyone can write a song, anyone can get an album on iTunes, but it takes that marketing money to get that push out there, unless you come across the right people that can help with that push. So I still work with Virginia Rose Band, help them out, try to guide them, try to keep their finances straightened out. I paid for the mastering for their debut album, even though they weren't signed to Soundcheck at the time. They wanted to stay completely independent. I was like, okay, I believe in your music that much. So I put the money into it, got it done, and they toured the country summer of 2015 and did pretty good on the road. And they had a follow-up album just last year, and we're trying to get that pushed. And people don't realize, just because you might come across a new song or something like that, that song may have been around for 10 years, 50 years, in case of the Little Richard Band. There's no time limit on music, and that's what I try to push to these artists. But also I tell them, nobody's getting any younger, so if you got music, let's get it recorded, let's get it out there and see how people respond. And if you go to a new town, you have a second album out, don't forget to sell your first album, because that's money. It's already there. It's in inventory. Do it.
And it's a part of your music. It's always going to be a part of your music. The first album, no matter what you say, is still a part of the music.
Yes, that's right.
Sometimes it may not have been good then, but it got good later. Dolly Parton would have never known that some little girl named Whitney Houston would make her song bigger than she did.
Exactly. Absolutely. I tell everybody that.
Tell them, Marshall.
Yeah.
You got it. Daisy, are you there? Did Daisy come on? I don't know if she did, but Daisy called me.
She's listening, watching you, but she can't get sound, so she's working on her sound.
Okay, that's good enough. We know Daisy Brown was with us for many years, and she's been out there in the business. She can tell more stories than we can tell, but she's out there on and listening. I want to say one more thing. Bernard, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm right here, buddy.
Okay. Bernard's been around a long time. He helped out years ago a record company out of L.A., Melvin Couch, who was doing gospel.
Yes.
And he knows. Bernard, tell him a little bit about that period of your life.
Yeah, I mean, I've always, here in the South, growing up just in the whole Christian community, gospel music has always been something that's been like a pillar here in my community and really across the world. I got a chance to meet Melvin and Meltone Records, a very talented guy. Worked with just a cadre of very talented gospel artists. And I was happy to work with him and get behind him on a couple projects, actually. And it's just been a great experience working with him and just being a part of the music industry in terms of just supporting it and trying to get good music out there, because you can never get enough of good music. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Well, Bernard, I sure appreciate you calling in, because I know you're busy and ripping and running. Bernard and I are working on the Super Bowl, and tell them a little bit about your company, Bernard, before you get out of there, so people have something to do with film. You're in Atlanta. Give them a way to reach you, and I appreciate you coming on the call.
Yeah. I'm here in Atlanta, working mainly around the film and entertainment side. We got a couple of film projects that we're planning for 2021 because of the pandemic. Everything kind of slowed down. And so we got a couple of film projects that we plan to do in maybe the first, second quarter of next year. We're really excited about that. My approach to business, Keith, as you know, is I don't want to tell people about it. I like for people to see it and kind of know what I'm doing, So right now, everything is kind of close to the chest and top secret. But just a quick overview. Those are some of the things we're working on right now.
All right.
Well, we sure appreciate it. Thank you. I know you got a lot to do head on. I got John on here right now. And we're going to talk a little bit about the gospel side. And if you can find some of the old gospel music that Richard did, go get it. It's amazing. Go get the blues. It's amazing. My ex-wife called me and said, I didn't know Richard did blues. I said, go listen to it.
Richard did everything.
They are amazing.
Yeah, the foundation.
Richard said everything.
Richard did everything. Richard played harpers way back then. Wait a minute, Marshall. I'm talking about your business now. Harper's Lounge, Knoxville, Tennessee. Come on now. Wow. I'm bringing back some of the old stuff.
You going way back with Peacock, right there in Atlanta, when we played Atlanta. Right. You going back to them days now, buddy.
I'm going back to them.
Royal Peacock.
Well, I'm hoping that, I don't know if Paul Murray got a chance to get on. He was also there with us. He did with James Brown, and he also was Michael Jackson and them's personal photographer with Joe Jackson.
Right, absolutely.
Absolutely, with the old days. Well, I sure appreciate all you all coming on. We don't have but a few more minutes.
John, I really appreciate you.
Tell me a little bit more. How's Al Green doing there in Memphis?
Oh, man, he's doing just great. He's getting out a little bit more now, too, Okay. Yeah, but, the pandemic have changed everything. This COVID is something else. But, he's doing great. He's got his church there. They still, have service every Sunday, man. And he comes out now, and his voice is still just as smooth as it's always been. But, I wanted to drop something else in, man. I heard you mention about Whitney Houston, that Dolly Parton song that she did. Hey, our own Memphis Kirk Whalum. Kirk Whalum played that sax. That sax is from Memphis. And of course, from Stax, we had the Memphis horn that back in the day backed up everything.
Everybody.
They backed up all the horns,
Everybody.
Yeah, they backed up everybody across the country, man. And of course, I personally knew Andrew, the saxophonist, and we started our studio. He was one of our personal friends. Him and David Porter, with Stax, wrote all them.
Did they play together with the Rogers brothers?
Oh yeah. So yeah, and man, so you know them all because Chicago and Memphis is like one and the same,
And on that note, somebody said a bit ago about Barry Gordy and Dick Griffin. But they left out Al Bell. Al Bell and Stax. Al Bell and Stax have to be included in that number.
Let me add a story to that. I was with Dick Griffey sitting on the couch. He had his office was on Coinga, and he had the whole top floor. Actually, he bought the building in cash. Yeah. But anyway, he was telling me a story. He said, "Hey, where you're sitting here, that's Al Bell came in here. I think I can't remember how he told me the story. Either he got divorced or something happened. Something happened where he was going through some rough times. He said, "Hey, Mr. Griffey, please give me a shot. On this song." And it's whoop, there it is. And so Dick Griffey said, I just made a few phone calls. And so I told Dick Griffey, I said, "What do you mean you made a few phone calls?" He said, "I just made some power calls. The next thing you know it, we were on the charts and it blew up. It just blew up." And so it's amazing how that was, how Mr. Griffey taught me the industry, but it's a small world. That's what I want to say.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And Al Bell was way ahead of his time.
Oh, yeah. Al Bell is, man, I mean, he's from over in Arkansas, but Arkansas connects to Memphis. But, man, he's here all the time. And we just lost also the late great Rance Allen. I don't know how many of y'all familiar with Rance Allen, man. And Al Bell was responsible for bringing him back and, you know, bringing him back on the chart. But nobody could touch even Rance Allen, you know, man, with that voice that he had, you know. And of course, yeah, as you mentioned, the lady mentioned earlier, Why Stacks and all that, man. And David Porter, David Porter just started a thing here in Memphis called Made in Memphis. Big studio right in the downtown area, man. Multi-million-dollar studio, people coming all over the world, man, to actually
to record there.
Yeah, to record there, man. And so it's great things going on, man, for new artists and older artists and artists, period.
Right.
And Keith, I appreciate it, man, for allowing me to be a part of this, man. I mean, you know.
Well, thank you.
Been a great
Same here. Same here.
Same here, Keith. Thank you very
Thank
much.
all of you guys for making Richard's memories come alive again.
Oh,
because we know that the entertainment tonight and all of those other people are going to do something on Richard, but I hate to put it this way, but it's going to be white way. We're talking about the Black Lives Matter. Richard, Black life mattered way back before it was accepted.
Oh yeah.
So we want everybody to know.
Is there a movie in the making? Keith, is anybody talking about Little Richard's movie?
It's a documentary.
Yes. It's a documentary.
Yeah, we're part of that. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Out there in California, their help setting it up. Vita is a major part. We want to say hello to all of those working on the Little Richard upcoming documentary. Please.
It's a very large company. Yeah, the company that put out the what's his name? The guy that got put in jail. What's that guy? On Netflix. I went blank here. I'm having a senior moment.
That's all right.
Jail.
Hey, call that a busy moment. You got lots of business going on. That's a busy moment.
Yeah, but we're talking about these people, along with Vita and Dog Sled. Yeah. I mean, it's coming out. It's a major production, and it's going to give the right credibility to Richard's life.
Right.
It won't always be just the same old stuff with his foot on the piano. It's a lot more that Richard did.
The humanness of him. Yeah.
Man, I hope they include us in that Memphis area and in Tennessee.
Well, you got to. Okay. Well, you got to remember that the music business that became New Orleans moved to Memphis. Then it moved to Chicago. That's the history of the written Black music, the recorded Black music. They were doing music all along, but you got to remember they were writing it and stealing it. Mm-hmm. Once they started recording it, they couldn't steal it no more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Gotcha. Let me throw this out there just for everybody's. My book.
Go ahead, baby.
I just finished my book, Atlanta Entertainment History, Juking in the A. But so much of the history of Atlanta, of African-American music is actually rooted in Atlanta. So very much of it, it was, not only did we come to the stage where you played the Apollo and you played the Peacock, and you weren't nobody till you had played both, but back when they had the blues, the gospel.
Which one?
Was actually born in Georgia through what a fellow called Georgia Tom.
Oh, yeah.
Georgia Tom left Atlanta and went to Chicago.
That's
Tom
right.
Dorsey became the godfather of gospel music.
Gospel music, that's right.
He originated right here actually right down the road there. Was at Little Richard, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
And through Atlanta, Georgia. But I'm writing history. I'm so excited about the history because the history is what takes us to the next level.
That's right.
Is what takes us to the next level and brings our kids on to the next level.
Absolutely.
Libby, when do we buy your book?
My book is I'm gonna have to let you know. I'm waiting on the publisher to tell me when it's gonna be available.
But we're gonna send you one.
I promise you between my brother Marshall and Keith, y'all will know. I sell entertainment too on the side, so I have a good not on the side, that's how I make my money. Well, not anymore.
Don't you tell them all
Not
the stories.
anymore. You know we ain't got.
Don't you tell
When
them all
the
the
music
stories.
comes back, that's how I make my money. Selling it. Marshall, we go way back.
Well, Libby is an accomplished agent there out of Atlanta, but she's been around the business. We all respect her. We thank you for putting the book out. Because we know that we need it. You got a lot of people out of Atlanta in that area. We know there's two things. New Orleans may have started some music. Memphis carried it. But you couldn't get a record broken if you didn't go through Chicago.
Chicago, that's right.
Okay?
WBO.
Big brother there. E. Rodney Jones. Oh, there he is. Man, where you been? I've been looking for you for an hour.
My brother, I just been enjoying the conversation. Me and my cousin, yeah.
Thank you, cuz, for coming on. This is a good friend, of course, his family. Marsh Roberts, this is family, but we always go back to Richard. He was on the road with Richard for many days. And Daryl, tell him a little something.
Yes. Giving honor to God the Most High and blessings for December 5th for this honorary moment for Uncle Little Richard. And we thank all y'all that came together on this Memorial Day for this event. We're going to continue to carry it on. Me and my cousin Rio in the 80s and 90s, we hung out with my Uncle Little Richard a lot in the limousine. And Danny, of course. Danny, we do have a couple of pictures. Little Richard, and I don't know if y'all.
We want to say hello to Danny and Peaches and Gail.
Peaches, the family.
The whole family who's still alive out here.
Yes, yes.
We salute all of you all in Tennessee. And I think Peggy's still in California, isn't she?
Still out there.
Okay.
And,
is she in Riverside?
Riverside. Yes, okay. Riverside. We like to personally thank him for all those days at Roscoe's and
Roscoe.
Kitchen, you know, we get out of church, we're in the limousine. We hitting on the Harbor Freeway, we heading out.
Wow.
Kitchen, met David Bowie through my Uncle Little Richard, Kwame. I mean, even the Beatles, just for him to have the picture with the Beatles in the back of him in the backdrop on black and white it was bigger than life to see that. To be able to go on Soul Train. I remember a time when Uncle Little Richard said, y'all want to go meet Michael Jackson and the Jacksons? And we went to the house in Encino.
Right.
Yeah.
Encino, California. Went out there. The fun times we had, you know, if you've been to the notorious, the Hyatt, the oldest building by Sunset, Too Short, the rapper Too Short. I remember we pulled up in the limousine after being on Hollywood Boulevard, and Too Short was at the Hyatt, and he came up to Uncle Little Richard personally. That's when the Pages was out. You know, we're not going to outdate ourselves, but Too Short came with the Pages like Little Richard.
Yeah, you stayed Pager, you know you did.
My first. I got MC Hammer was always over there.
Yeah.
Met Millie Vanilli, rest in peace, you know, to Millie Vanilli. Of course, Danny.
And somebody who Richard loved, who was many times at that hotel, of course, in Atlanta too, was Muhammad Ali, and of course, Mama Ali.
That's right.
Gave us a shout out.
Yeah, how you doing there? I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes,
God bless
Mama Ali,
you all.
thank you for calling in.
Yeah, just to hear the family of Little Richard, brother. Thank you so much, man. It's like
pleasure. Thank you
all right.
You come from the royalty of
blessings and love.
Muhammad used to sit in the up in the what you call the makeup room,
Yes.
and
The dressing rooms.
no, I can't see where my hairs look pretty. I can't go out there telling my hair looks pretty. And then Richard said that Muhammad Ali was the prettiest black man he ever seen in his life. And Ali would touch his hair to see if it was real. I said, it's real. It's just dooed it up. It's real. Richard was the cream of the crop.
All right. Yes, indeed.
And he's a really an unsung hero. I mean, he's done a lot more than just the rock and roll. He is uplifted.
Well, that's what we want to lead. Mama Ali, you just said it. We want to lead that history. We had an hour here. It's on. Look for us next year live from Ondas, West Hollywood. As long as this COVID thing moves on out the way, we will be much bigger next year. But we want to thank everybody for coming on.
Absolutely. I'm going to get everybody I know on board. Marshall Thompson, all of them, they would love to be a part of this.
They got it.
Come join us. We have the LittleRichardCelebration.com. Next year, we'll be doing the Hyatt and making it a grander celebration. And as he always said, I have one of his recorded last voices. I recorded him. And he said, Darryl, I'm not feeling good, baby. Tell the world that I love him.
You sound just like him too.
Just like
you got to Winslow. You got to give Darryl my number. We got to talk. I help you with all that.
Top it up.
Everything's going to be on this. Well, God bless you, everybody. Thank you. Alhamdulillah, for those who understand the true spirit.
That's right.
Okay?
And Andrew, let's just do one thing. Everybody get one pause, 5 seconds for Little Richard right now. One pause. God bless you. May Allah bless all of you. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Keith. Rock Legacy Honorarium. And I want to thank everybody who participated. See you again next year. Happy holidays.
God bless you. Thank you. You gave me goosebumps, Keith. You gave me goosebumps. Now, give me a call, Darryl.
Let me do one thing for y'all.
Okay.
I got my mask, and it's got music notes.
Oh.
I thought you were going to play Tutti Frutti.
That's what I thought too. I was waiting for Tutti Frutti
There you go. Tutti Frutti.
Tutti Frutti.
Good Sally. Good golly, Miss Smiley. And I did a song that I wrote for Richard
called
Trying to Help Your Brother.
Long Tall Sally, yes.
All right.
Blessing. Over and out.
Over and out, guys. God bless you all. Happy holidays to all of you.
Happy holidays.
Stay safe.
Don't forget Trish there at Cognitive Media Group who put this together. We want to especially thank her. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
The LittleRichardBand.com.
LittleRichardBand.com.
Amen.
All right.
Amen. Okay, here we go. Oh my God, look at that. Tim, oh my God, Tim, I love that picture.
Yeah, I was getting ready to tell the story behind that picture.
I love that picture. Oh my gosh.
Here, let me move so you can see it.
Oh yeah, I see it now. Yeah. Okay, I've seen that.
Okay, this guy, this other guy right here, that's Keith.
You Keith.
When I was young.
That's Keith.
Oh, that's Keith.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's Keith.
I was a little bit younger then.
He was young then. Yeah, I see how young you were, bro.
But he's still here.
Keith
Who is that? Mr. Morris trying to come in there. Who is that?
There he is.
There he is. Oh my God, that is a gorgeous picture, Tim.
Yeah, that's when Keith brought me the project, he brought me an old picture that's hanging on the wall in his living room. Yeah. And my sister had to colorize that to bring all the correct colors.
Right.
Like down to the makeup that he wore, the color of the drums, the outfit that Keith's wearing, everything. And,
oh wow.
And that was the album that was the album art for the release that Soundcheck did. And then, we thought it would be better to hand it over to a bigger distributor. And so we sent it over to Hitman, and the rest is there. But I just want to make sure that you guys know that Rick White was the engineer that mastered the Little Richard Band. Yeah. And Tracy Schneider, my sister, did the artwork there. And then for the actual album that we dropped, Yoshi Gish, which is one of my recording artists, he did the CD artwork and layout. But I just wanted to let you guys know that that's more than just a picture. It's actually part of the album.
It is part of the album. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming on. We really appreciate it. I think Zoom is getting ready to cut us all off. But either way, we did it. This is the beginning.
All righty.
2021. Look for it
That was
live.
really remarkable, sweetie.
Yeah, no problem.
So
go to the littlericardband.com. You'll see all the history of everything we did.
Okay, I'm going to go to littlericardband.com. Got it.
Yes.
You got it.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Thanks,
so
everybody.
Much.
Thank you.
Especially you, John, for staying with us.
Thank you. Hey, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Okay, I'm gonna let you turn back over. Yeah, you just in it, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I don't know how my friend pulled me in on this thing. I tell you, on the end, Muhammad Ali, like, yes, we on Zoom. It's where it just went on, but Muhammad Ali wife was on there. I mean, the stylistic guy, and then all these big promoters and distributors, and all the information. I didn't know. Little Richard, he trained the Beatles. He did voice training for the Beatles, and oh man, just so much history. I'm like, man, you know. Of course, they let me put seven, and this promoter friend of mine, he made me feel like I was big time Tennessee. Of course, I talked about Jerry Lee Lewis, Otis Redding, and many of those in Tennessee that he affected. But anyway, it's about an hour thing. So once they give me the link to YouTube, because it'll be, you know, we was live on YouTube, but it'll be, you know, where you can go back and look at. Yeah, but I mean, but they had people like, say, this guy Marshall that's with this that started the Skylistics out of Chicago. And of course, we got record producers and distributors from California and folks from Atlanta, a historian lady from Atlanta. I mean, these folks talking about all the impact that Little Richard made on so many people, and then some of his cousins and stuff like that on it and stuff. So it was something. I'm like, man, how did I get to be a part of it? I never met Little Richard. No, but see, my friend, I supposed to be going to Nashville a couple of years ago. He'd been trying to schedule for me to go up there and interview Little Richard, but we never did. He never did. Well, no, what the thing is that this friend of mine, see, he talks about all these people, but everybody know him. I mean, everybody know this guy. I mean, I know he always talking to me about all these folks. Everybody know him, man. He knows everybody. And he just hung on to me for years. and he don't forget nobody. He remembers it. I mean, they talk about Joe Jackson, like, he's one of the guys up the street. Yeah, Joe is. We're like, what y'all talking about? yeah, we just drove down to the Jackson house and talked to Michael and they talk about folks, MC Hammer hanging out with Little Rich Muhammad Ali was crazy about it and talking about how they hang out. That was it. I mean, I'm like, am I a part of a Zoom with all these major, all these folks? Yeah, yep. So anyway, but what's so good is that when you hear, which I always love, what you hear, these people just love people. Little Richard loved people. He was down to earth. That's the part, and he always was trying to help people make it in the industry. And that's the part. Yeah, that's the part. That's the inside story. That's what you hear about Otis Redding. That's what you hear about Jerry Lee Lewis. This promoter friend of mine said, well, Jerry Lee Lewis spoke highly of Richard. They said Jerry Lee Lewis would get drunk and he wouldn't want to perform, and Little Richard would have to be the one to go into the dressing room and get him out to perform. Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis is that rock and roll white singer. Yeah. I said, but and said, look, Little Richard would be the one that would help motivate him to do concerts because he wouldn't. Once he get drunk, he'll go into another zone. You're not going to get drunk and go into another zone. And and if it wasn't for, but then these guys attribute their success. Otis Redding, these guys, they attribute their success and their movements, and he played. Otis Redding was in a band that Richard put together years ago. What's the other guy, the guitarist that played in the what's the guy? I can't think of can't think his name right now. Yeah, but anyway, but all this is on what you call. So so all this will be on the actual. But anyway, I decided I'm like, wow. But well, they're gonna give me a link. Once they give me a YouTube link, I'll send it out to folks. Once they post it up on YouTube. Yeah, anyway, my grandkids over here making decoration and stuff, so I'm gonna get back down to them. I mean, it's over an hour. I'll get you some rest. Yeah. Yep, hey, take care of yourself. Oh, you told me you're gonna pay for it. What did you do the gin? Oh, you did that before you went to work last night, but you did it after you worked too, because you had. Yeah.